Hey, Brian.
Hey, Elliot.
What's the talk of the table?
Today we're doing something just a little bit different. We have a feed drop from our friends over at the Panic Table. They are currently crowdfunding a very cool project called Voidstream. It is a tool set of terrifying found footage, audio, and video artifacts for Mothership and all your other favorite horror TTRPGs. These are distress signals, CCTV footage, farewell transmissions, and awful audio logs designed for use as in-world set dressing, creepy creative prompts, in-game adventure hooks, and or just full-on horror immersion.
But that is not all. Included with every backing of Voidstream is SOS Source of Signal, a completely original Mothership adventure by our friends Dungeon Club and the Panic Table, now available in delicious print. Deep in the bowels of a derelict public access station, you and your crew will plumb the static and inky depths to discover the hideous source of the Voidstream signal and learn fun ways to use the Voidstream audio and video artifacts along the way.
It is also going to include 30 minutes of original atmospheric music.
Ha!
It works better. Works better when it's written out. It's got fear in there. But by our friend and yours, Behold, which we're very excited about.
On cassette, allegedly.
On cassette.
And fun fact, there's another pretty cool person working on this project, me. I have been unlocked as the $20,000 stretch goal, and they'll be delving into my twisted little brain to construct 6 unique void streams of my own.
Hell yes. Voidstream is on BackerKit right now, but the campaign ends tomorrow, Friday, August 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So go back it right now, but if you're too late, pre-sales of Voidstream, SOS, and the unbelievably cool VHS box set will be available even after the campaign ends. Let us take you now live to a pre-recorded interview with Cameron from the Panic Table and the entire Many-Sided Media crew.
We talk about horror in game design, horror in actual play, and how to bring, horror juicy goodness to your table at home. Enjoy all the fun tips and, a little bit of Cameron, my nemesis, razzing me.
Also, P.S., if you want to see a video version of this interview, it is available on the Panic Table YouTube channel. We'll put the link in our show notes below.
Enjoy. Atmospheric, get it? Get it?
Atmosphere.
It's atmospheric.
F-E-A-R.
Atmospheric.
It's funny because we're
no,
spelling
Brian, I don't
it
think
wrong.
you're getting it. It's atmospheric.
It's like a homophone joke.
It's a homophone joke.
Yeah.
Hello, the internet. I am Cameron Danger Strip Matter, and this is another luxurious episode of Streaming into the Void. Today we are joined by the entire Motley Rogues gallery of Many-Sided Media. Abby Hepworth, Chinook Tessera, Brian Flaherty, and it says here their intern Elliot Davis. Welcome to Streaming into the Void, my friend.
That's it for me. I'm gonna head out.
Yeah, technically, you've given him a promotion from what his title actually.
Yeah. I was errand boy before this interview.
Yes.
It was
Cool boy.
It was actually Aaron Lad.
Errand lad.
You've got
behind his back.
I've got a great little coat.
To me, this is the most New York get-together. We all live probably within maybe 2.5 miles of each other, and we're all like firmly sequestered into our own nooks and cranny and several different boroughs, I imagine. I don't even know. This is just such a New York... This could have been in person, and we absolutely didn't want it to be, and I cherish that about us. Yeah, welcome to New York. We're doing things out here. You are doing things out here. Many-Sided Media is up to so much, and it's the 4 of you, right? I've only met 3 of you in a bar, and Abby, this is our first time face to face.
I know.
To your dulcet tones, and they are dulcet. Just warble us a tune.
I can't sing to save my life, but I do like crawling into everyone's ears.
Are you not in any of the tree shanties?
No, although Jay tried extremely hard to convince everyone that they can teach anyone to be a singer. And that truly anyone can sing and sing well. And I was like, I don't know about that.
Abby didn't want to shatter Jay's worldview.
Again,
As somebody who went into that not wanting to, I believe them.
It is a treat to have you here in our digital little hallway closet together, just mooshed together, our breaths warming each other's necks. I hate this metaphor, even as we're saying it out loud, but many-sided media is such a multifaceted thing. In fact, your needle is so down on the groove of what the talk of the table is. You've got your own show about it, where you get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on in tabletop RPGs, nationwide, worldwide. What's the distinction?
Worldwide.
What's the criteria? And how do you get on a show like that? I'm asking for a friend.
Well, you have to be selected, and
process like,
we do
Elliot?
leave that to the intern, and he doesn't care for you.
our
no,
intern
I don't know.
actually makes all of our business decisions.
It's true.
Yeah.
I own the bank account. I've got the masthead right behind me. No, I mean, it's worldwide at this point. We have made an effort to talk to all different kinds of folks. We essentially just want to talk to people who we want to be our friends, is how Talk of the Table works. We're like, cool, interesting person who's doing cool, interesting thing, be our friend and talk to us. And yeah, we've made an effort to make it not just like your typical fare of guests, where like I feel like people will go for like high profile designers and high profile performers. We like to talk to more indie folks that we've gotten to work with, and yeah.
It's crazy how much you're up to. Not only are you doing that, you're knee deep in another season of, I would say tree deep in another season of My First Dungeon, where the four of you and sometimes colorful guests, if I have that right, it's you're all over the place. It's not just the core group. You bring in new folks every once in a while, and together, I mean, why am I pitching it? Brian, tell us what the heck My First Dungeon is.
My First Dungeon is a tabletop role-playing podcast that helps game masters learn new games and make each one better than the last.
This has got to be such a shock for your core listeners, because this is probably like only the first or second time they've actually looked at you while your mouths are moving. Is this a true
100%.
statement?
Yeah.
It's weird. We actually talked about a while ago potentially recording and using video for some of our content, and ultimately it was simply that we don't have the bandwidth to edit video on top of editing audio and doing all those other sorts of things. But also I was personally very grateful, where I was like, I don't have to think about this. My mug doesn't have to get dolled up every time.
It's scary to find yourselves talking to yourselves, and as we talk amongst ourselves, I figured tonight we talk about something scary. Do you see what I did there? That was fun.
I love it.
Great.
It's not scripted. I'm just a lonely person. One of my favorite things about your offerings that I rapidly absorbed after I ran into Elliot at a bar and then wound up talking to Brian for the rest of that time is how many of the games that you've played, whether it was intentional, either the game system itself was designed to be unnerving, or just because horror can be any genre, any situation with just a light nudge. You've played a lot of games publicly that take a trip to Spooky Town. I would love for you to talk a little bit just about frightening gameplay, both publicly and at your own tables.
You know, it's kind of funny that when you invited us on to talk about horror games, Abby and I were talking. We're like, this is like kind of surprising. We don't really run that many horror games. But then we thought about it. We're like, well, I guess we did 10 Candles, which is obviously horror, and then like Wild Sea has some like horror elements. Die, Project Echo is pretty explicitly like has some horror stuff, and we started taking it down. It's like, oh, actually, most of what we do is as horror.
We even brought horror into Hometown Holiday, a game that I would
that was scary.
If they had thought they needed to put, if they thought they
takes
needed to
some
put
dark
no
turns.
body horror in that game, they didn't think of it, but they should have, because we brought
Yeah,
it.
that is a game that is explicitly trying to recreate a Hallmark Christmas movie in which the ending is supposed to be getting one chaste kiss, and somehow we had like pretty explicit body horror in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it was awful. Who did that?
Truly, the question is, what of your productions hasn't been at least lightly horrifying? Chinook, can you even think of one?
Honey Heist?
Honey Heist was pretty neutral.
Honey Heist is pretty
I
neutral.
feel like
Wander
the only
Home?
one is Yuzeba's Bed and Breakfast.
But Yuzeba's
Yeah.
Bed and Breakfast has
Yuzeba's
some-
has some
Definitely
eerie
a scary one of
chapters.
Yuzeba's. Yeah. There were some horror chapters in there.
Wander
true.
Home was pretty not horror. I'd
Yeah,
say.
Yeah,
Wander
Wander
Home
Home
was-
was just nice and
was
fun vibes
delightful.
the whole time.
But that's just like how Possum Creek games kind of work.
Yeah, I mean, how did we get here? How did we arrive at this bizarre internet publication now? And this is where we find that Many-Sided Media is being outed as a primarily horror podcast.
Don't tell anyone. You actually can't release
I
this.
think it's one of those things where, like, with some exception, I know there's always an exception to the rule, but I just feel like every TTRPG lends itself super well to horror. And I think that there's also an element that I was thinking about this earlier today of, like, when I was at summer camp, the best thing in the world was everybody exchanging scary stories. And you're all trying to one up each other, and you're all trying to freak each other out, and you're all trying to, like, retell some kind of local horror, but in a new way that's going to mess with everybody. And I feel like part of, at least the way we play, I guess, TTRPGs, it's that same thing of, like, I want to one up everybody and freak everybody out. And all of us are constantly trying to, like, you know, do a spook in a fun, cool new way. And so I feel like it ends up twisting into that, like, how do I freak everybody out, but in a fun way?
This is a perfect segue into my first beefy question for you guys, which is, why is it fun to be scared together? And Abby, we've gotten your version of that story already. Like, why is it fun to be scared together? Is it fun to be scared together? What are your insights on that? You can just pop off as the spirit moves.
I haven't heard someone say as the spirit moves you in a while, and I didn't know I kind of needed it back in my life.
I think it's fun to scare your friends. I think, like, having just come out of the GM chair for WildSea, I think that there is something in TTRPG running where you want to, at times, surprise your players. Like, that's like surprise and delight. Like, your players are your first audience, your, like, collaborators are your first audience, and one of the most core ways to surprise is with a scare, is with a creepy, like, one of my favorite things about the WildSea season is Jay and Abby are the best players at the table to have for shocking horror moments, because they both go and it's great.
We were
It's
like gasping in unison
delicious
all
candy.
the time.
Yeah.
It is great because as I'm editing those episodes, I know, like, I can see in the waveform, like, what people's audio is doing, and I see Elliot come to an end of a thing, and my eyes immediately at this point glance down to Jay and Abby's tracks, which I have right next to each other, and there's a little pop of sound in each of them, and everyone else is silent. It's like everyone else is not good audible reactors. Jay and Abby, it's always and they're always timed just a little bit off, so I don't have to move them. It's always oh my god. There's always a great back and forth between the two.
I think it's also like fear and like humor and like laughter are like two connected emotions, and that, like, when you're scared, what cuts it is laughter. Like, and I think Brian had this great analogy in the A Talk of a Table episode. I forget which one it was now, but he said like, if like you have such a tense moment in like a horror film and like you don't cut it with anything, the audience will just naturally laugh to like break that tension. And like that is like fundamentally why horror and like lends itself so well to comedy. And that, like, when you're doing horror, like, there's so much suspense and like anticipation that like putting a joke in there makes it hit so much harder because it's like less expected.
There is a reason why. There's a reason why, like, Jordan Peele going from comedy to like being known now as a horror director makes so much sense, because ultimately you're just playing with tension, and it's just that the final release of the tension is either ha or ah. Like, it's so close to one another. It's just how you're like framing the narrative around it.
Well, and that's is when I'm talking to people about the Panic Table, which is our mothership sci-fi horror actual play, and they're like, "Oh, horror! You must be intense." And like, yeah, I'm literally wearing a skeleton shirt right now, and I
love the shirt. It's
Thank you. That's what this is actually about today. So,
But you
we
also
could just
said
completely-
Willikers 5 minutes ago, so
Well, yeah, it's a comedy show is the thing. The Panic Table is, until it's not. Like, they find themselves into these situations that are the only thing. I was like, this is not a horror story. It's a love story that tends to just go kind of terribly awry as you go. But otherwise, it's just sort of a rom-com drama bomb, if you will.
Got his ass.
Oh, wow. Is that the time? Oh, my God.
Oh, goodness.
Elliot, you are a game designer yourself.
Sometimes. Most
And
of the time.
a big old feather in your cap is one of your most exciting new projects, actually. I would love to. Rom-com Drama Bomb is such a bananas concept about, let me know if I have this right, because I've been practicing pitching it to my parents who are like, just have a normal job. But we changed the locks. How did you get in here? But you're adopted, which I already knew, but they just like to whip it out.
Great.
You play two people who are absolutely not in love, captured by a nemesis-styled character, be that a supervillain or a supernatural horror or some sort of alien god, and that being has explosives strapped to both of you, and as a 3-player game, you have to navigate that being's idea of what a rom-com would be like or die.
Correct. Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Okay, yeah,
It's
incredible.
It's a love letter to romantic comedies, or rather, a ransom note.
Yes.
You bet.
Which I know that came out of Brian's mouth, Cameron, but that is my copy. I just want to just
Yeah,
before you
that's
go, before you go.
Is that why I hated it? I can't figure out.
It sounded so right, but it felt so wrong.
That guy's losing his touch. What's happening?
I was talking to your friend and composer Behold, who does all sorts of wonderful work for your shows, those original scores and tree shanties and things. And he's been Elliot's friend since childhood, and neither of us could place what it is specifically about choosing to make Elliot your nemesis that is so tonic to one's health, to your outlook on life. Like, I could have the worst day possible, but at least I'm not Elliot, and that feels good.
Elliot, aren't you glad that we set this up?
What's amazing is that this was in the outline,
Those were
and
not my
I was
words.
like,
that was your buddies.
"Oh, I know." I was like, I saw this in the outline, and I was like, "That's a funny bit." He's definitely not going to pull it out on mic. Yeah, Colin.
Off mic bit.
Elliot,
Colin is one of my oldest friends, and also just an absolute piece of shit.
But back on track, you've written horrifying scenarios, because rom-com drama bomb, that could be horrifying just as much as it could be hilarious, right? But
of course,
it's walking that line between those two things. But then you have some just outright stuff. Project Echo is meant to be unnerving all the way through, involving time loops and confusing beings and personal uncertainty and who you are in the greater scheme of things, if I recall.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, speaking of identity misplacement, there's something wrong with the chickens.
Yes,
Which
I would say
honestly
not a
is
horror
horrifying.
game. I mean,
No,
it's a horror. Well, okay.
I've never
horror
not
adjacent.
played a version of Something's Wrong with the Chickens or Something's Wrong with the Turkeys for the holidays, where there wasn't inherent body horror. Off the bat, immediate. So yes, they're terrifying games.
No, that's fair. Nothing to add there. You're right.
As a game designer, though, in your opinion, and then I'll throw it to Abby or Chinook or that other one. Elliot, as a game designer, what, in your opinion, are essential ingredients to having a horrifying, fun time at the table?
I think that it's the same thing that makes for good horror broadly. Like, I think that it's scarier not to see the thing. Your imagination is ultimately going to be scarier than whatever you show on screen, like in a movie, for example. And so I feel like when you're designing a game, you are not making the most horrifying thing. You are making the thing that will grow in someone's mind into the most horrifying thing. You give them that little nasty seed that then they fill into this horrifying, disgusting creature that I could try and write a description of, and I might get 60% of the way there, but I won't get 100% of the way to what you as a player find the most horrifying with the right prompts and seeds of ideas.
I think that's part of the reason why our podcasts often start to lilt towards horror, because like there is a tension aspect. There is like, if because we're a comedy podcast, ostensibly horror's right there, but also like audio only mediums are rife, or like really ripe for horror, because explicitly that you can't see the monster, and the thing that you have in your head is always going to be way scarier. And like, I can give you the blockbuster $100 million idea of a monster, of a scary moment, that we could never do on film because we don't have the budget or the expertise, or quite frankly, don't have the space in your imagination to just put on the screen in the way that audio only medium does.
Even if you did, it wouldn't be as frightening, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. The two things. One, I actually got the four of you here to pitch the Panic Tables journalism segment on many-sided media. And Brian, can it be called Lilting Towards Horror? Because that...
Yeah, you can have a lilting towards horror.
10 out of 10. Unbelievable. But you touched on something. I can't remember if it was talking with Silviana, our producer. We had Diana Faye, or Diana of the Rose, as she's known, on her different streaming tags and stuff last night. And we were talking about, can D&D be scary? And inconclusive. Like, you can be a good storyteller. Is D&D mechanically scary? Almost never. Like, you really have to do some jumping jacks, was the verdict, kind of loosely wandered around, before we realized the video wasn't recording. And but
horror.
What's so powerful about horror games, and this is just magnifying what Elliot said, is like, when you're at a table and you just kind of hint at something, you're getting however many players at that table's unique imaginings of what might be around that door, or in that sea of trees, or, you know, strapped to their chests. And you can't, that's very different when it's in a game versus when it's in a movie, because then each of those may or may not be used in the thing. And Chinook, we had talked briefly about this just in the Discord, and I mean by like 15 minutes before we started this recording. But you pointed out something amazing that I wanted to throw the ball to you too, because you mentioned that like setting stakes is something that's uniquely cool about horror in games. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I think in terms of just like games in general, but like especially horror games, stakes are so fucking important. And also it's so, I think in APs and it's such a interesting place, is it's not the GM setting the stakes. Like, you can try to, but it's the players that will end up telling you what the stakes are more over than not. And that's what's so interesting, because like someone can make something so like a stupid, silly, dumb choice, and like take that choice and make it like have the most insane highest stakes. And now, like, this person says they're afraid of pencils, and now you have to play a campaign where, like, that's the fear for this one character.
The sharpening.
Right. But it's a unique, like, I think in terms of storytelling, such a unique place for the story, the one that's crafting the story. Like, the GM doesn't have the power to create those stakes in a horror setting, which I think is so fascinating and fun. And also like lends itself to like a comedic lens more often than not, while also like maintaining like this is still scary and fucked up.
What do we think about that?
I think there's a fun GM trick in there that is very helpful for anyone who stresses over planning, or who wants to be somewhat of a lazy GM. Your players are going to do the work. You just give them a little hint. You don't even have to think through what the thing is going to be. And their imaginations, they're going to, with table talk and doing other things, all of a sudden be like, do you think it's like this, or do whatever? They do what I call finagling, of like, you know, you're trying to mystery solve and find the thing, and all of a sudden the GM's like, yes, that seems right.
There's also a great GM like cheat code in there of like, start doing a scene. You get, you know, you're walking down the corridor, you hear something. Hey, Chinook, what is your character most afraid is around the corner?
Yeah.
And then I don't have to do anything. I have got to do nothing.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden I put it entirely on the player, entirely on the character, and they're going to all of a sudden make the thing that is scariest to them. They're going to imagine the worst version of that thing, and they've put it exactly where I want it to be, and I've done nothing to earn this.
That's like special guest on Oprah level good. That's how did he do that? Amazing. That's so good. I'm going to steal that immediately. I love that.
Just ask. Just ask them.
Just
Be
ask.
like, what are you afraid of? What do you think is going to be there? What do you think? What is so bad about what could be around the corner? And then it's like,
I love a question to a player that tells you exactly how your player feels. It's just like, why are your palms sweating all of a sudden? Like, you just
this is a fact about your character. I just want to know why.
There is also something that I found that is extremely true. That when you ask a player or anyone in any kind of creative endeavor, like pick a thing, like what is your character's greatest fear? There's a solid chance that they're going to do something goofy. Like they're going to say, I'm really scared of pencils. But if you take 2 additional questions and like dig in on, like make them commit to that, by the end of it, they will be genuinely scared of pencils. And also because they created it, because it wasn't just you saying you've got a fear of pencils or the scary monster is a pencil, all of a sudden you've given them the opportunity to justify this fear in a way that they can embody and like they feel ownership of, and becomes way more real than something if you just put this scary monster in front of them and said, let me describe how it's scary.
Yeah.
I think that that's killer. One of the reasons I'm obsessed by and chose to go with Mothership RPG for our show is because they codified those instincts that I think you have and use naturally, but that not only are you giving them something to be concerned about, you're giving them the scaffolding as players to then make decisions off of so that it can get to where they want it to be, which is worse. It's so fun, but like, right, it's fun being scared together. Like everyone was like, okay, I'm playing a scary game because I want to feel scared. You don't go into 10 Candles of Dread being like, this should be fine. We should just be lilting towards horror in this. And,
Exactly.
Yeah. And so the panic engine that they have built into Mothership then makes like the things that happen around why you're scared meaningful. So even if you go into it off the cuff, like it's designed to be, where you're like, I don't know, pencils, then it's like, great. Like you have a recurring nightmare about this. What is it bothers you most? And then lets you sit with that until that instant comes up again 2-3 sessions later. And you're, it's so satisfying to see those pieces move. I think the one thing that I'm really getting from all the conversations that we're having around Void Stream and the rest of it is that, and yeah, this came up even in the D&D talk, describing the monster is fine. You can be like, oh no, it's a golem made of baby orphans, and everyone's like, it's not pencils, but and, Eraserhead is right there, and I don't know why I'm jumping for it, but like that doesn't beat that. Like the room smells like saffron.
Yeah.
You know, or just like, you just pick a sense. Go. I love the sweaty palms, knees weak, spaghetti. Yeah.
Senses are huge for horror. I feel like going for everything but sight is like a horror cheat code, you know, like a brush against the arm, a smell, a sound. Especially with our podcast, like I found, especially GMing Wild Sea, like thinking about Brian's sound design in like, what can I say that will lead to a really compelling, interesting sound that adds to the experience of like a listener for this, which I think is a unique thing for our podcast that we get to do, is like we get to consider that layer of Brian's sound design and like what that can bring to horror and a bunch of different genres, like epic fights and everything. But particularly with horror, like I think Brian said, like there's a reason so many of the biggest audio dramas are horror, like because when you dig in on sound design, you can just create, like all of a sudden you can put somebody in the biggest space imaginable all alone. Like there's just things you can do that you can't in any other kind of medium.
I think what, like Elliot said, like leaving sight for last, because like ultimately in general, like you're going to describe the thing that you see at the end, and that can be like the end of the symphony, but like you want to build it up before then. Like you need that running start to get to the final beat of this is the thing that you experience. And when you feel it in all those adjacent ways, like you just feel it so much stronger.
Yeah, riffing off of that, I see so many players, myself included, where the first time you crack like a game that has horror on the label, for instance, you know, you're like, okay, gotta make it scary, and you feel this huge burden to try and bring that into being the second the game starts to make sure the mood's right on all of the stuff. But throwing the ball to all four of you, and Chinook, you're kind of the king of this on the different shows. As a player, how do you make the situation worse in the most fun way for other people?
That is absolutely your MO.
Because you're incredible, and this is
worse, but
a compliment. It's not like I'm talking to Elliot here. This is.
I mean this in the best way possible.
Oh man, That's a good question. How do you make the...
Because you consistently do this. It's just great. Yeah.
Thank you. That is a very high compliment. I think it starts, I mean, like, it's good. Like, okay, I think it starts with, like, in horror scenarios, establishing, like, the norm of your character first, of, like, what is the, like, zone of comfort for this character? Like, where do they live? So, like, people listening, like, know, like, this is their, like, this is their baseline, right? And then when you're in, like, scenarios that are, like, heightened or just weird or different, you just play to, like, if you have done a good job of establishing what the norms of the character are, when they're in scenarios where, like, it's high stress, you will make choices that are high stress but real to your character. And so it just makes it easy to be like, oh yeah, of course my character's gonna, like, start crying and try to, like, hide their gun behind a couch because they're sad and scared, which, like, to me is, like, the normal thing to do, but, like, in reality, like, why the fuck are you doing that? This is not helping at all.
What's behind your couch?
I don't know. There's no guns behind my couch. There's just a plant. It's normal.
I swear.
I'm a regular guy.
I'm holding it for a friend.
It's not my gun. It's really not my gun.
Blue team, move in.
We got him.
Boom.
Man, great sting operation.
Playing, like, with Brian and Elliot and, like, Abby as, like, my GMs and Carolyn Page. It's a lot of trust in that, like, I know they'll punish me for making these choices and they'll hold me to it, so I can, like, make these swings knowing that, like, my GM will, like, honor those, like, stakes that I will create. Like, it's never just gonna be, like, tossed away. It's always gonna be something that, like, okay, cool, you did that, then now it's gonna fuck shit up, and that's on you, dude. It's never it's always, like, a symbiotic, like, relationship in that way.
Yeah, it's never, like, punitive in the way that, like, you did something bad or unoptimized or something, and it's like, okay, now I'm gonna give you your just desserts, whatever. But it is like, oh, you made this choice that you're gonna lean into this. Great. Now you've given me, like, permission to go, like, push you further down that road, and now we can get. I mean, like, you know, as we were saying with, like, tension for horror and comedy, it's just about, like, heightening the tension until you break it. It's about giving more contrast between the lights and the darks, in the same way that, like, anything, fashion, design is about contrast. The further you can get from the norm and then smash those two things together, the bigger the reaction will be, whether that is laughter, whether that is terror, whether that is any other kind of emotion. And the more your players give you that rope to go further and further down the uncharted passage, the more you can kind of show them down there, which is always really fun when you have players who are, like, down to make the bad choice, knowing that it's more interesting in the end.
Abby, why do you think it is that IRL, when you are not at the table, when someone's like, you want to go see Hereditary, your knee-jerk response is absolutely not. But the second,
No, not even a little bit.
you've got some dice in hand or some prompt cards, it's just no holds barred and you're all over it. What can you talk about that?
I've been trying to figure this out because, yes, I'm the biggest wimp in the entire world when it comes to scary movies, scary TV. Like, will not do it. And also, like, everything is scary to me.
I really want you to expand what you consider to be scary movie or television to include.
Well, it's hilarious that you're talking about pencils because I have a story, which is in high school. I took French. And we would watch French films sometimes in class in an effort to, like, try to, you know, get used to hearing the language. And we watched part of a movie called, I think it was just called Nikita. But at some point...
Oh, La Femme Nikita.
No.
Oh, different one.
I think it's a different... Anyway, Nikita, La Femme... I don't remember.
No, Brian. No.
Brian, you absolute fool.
Sorry.
But she's like a sleeper agent or whatever. She's a troubled young woman who then gets arrested, and then they turn her into, like, a crazy agent. But when they've first arrested her and they're talking to her and they're trying to get her to, like, tell them her name, all these sorts of things, whatever. The cop puts a pencil on the table with a piece of paper, and she picks up the pencil and she promptly stabs him straight in the hand. And I was not expecting this, and it freaked me out so much. I started to have a panic attack in French class. And what do you think was the class that I had exactly after that?
Pencils?
Art.
Pencils.
Pencil class.
Pencil 101.
I had to go to Pencils 101. I was actually in Pencils 201, but thank you.
But not after that experience. She got pushed back to 101.
And so, yeah, I get spooked by everything. Brian has a great story about watching.
I feel bad about this. So we were watching the second in Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy, Hot Fuzz. And
Hot Fuzz, not a scary movie.
Not a scary movie.
No
but
one would define it as horror.
But it has some moments of like tension and like strong reveals. There's some jump scares. And midway through, Abby's having a tough time, but is enjoying herself. It's a very funny, fun movie. And she turns to me and she's like, maybe like 2/3 of the way through it. She's like, I gotta know, are there any more scary parts coming up? Can you just tell me what they are, and then I'll be able to enjoy the movie more? I like kind of tracked the movie ahead in my, I hadn't seen it in a while, but I tracked it through my head, and I was like, no, there's a couple of like things, but I'll kind of tap you before they happen. And I swear to God, not 30 seconds later, she breathed a sigh of relief. And then it's the scene when Simon Pegg walks into his room and like the weird guy is in there, and it's like the biggest jump scare of the movie. And I swear to God, Abby jumps 2 feet off the couch, screamed, and ran out of the room.
Like, I can't.
It was because I'd accidentally lulled her into an absolute sense of ease and comfort next to someone she trusted and loved, who accidentally set her up for an absolute failure.
So this is the baseline we're talking about, is that I'm the biggest wimp on earth when it comes to this stuff. And yet, I freaking love a horror TTRPG. And again, it's the thing where I was saying before of like, at summer camp, I absolutely loved doing like horror stories around a campfire. Like there's something different, I guess, about like people sitting around sharing this in person or, over Zoom or whatever, but people talking to one another and the human connection of it that I think, I don't know if it diffuses it or if it just is more interesting to me to like watch people I know express these things and talk about what scares them or whatnot. I cannot pinpoint what makes the difference, but there is something really distinct about like TTRPGs and story building together that just is different, just hits different.
It just
Do you
hits
think
different.
it's agency?
Yeah.
There is a thing,
Abby?
that I think you are, more so than horror, are particularly adept at tragedy.
Thank you.
An outcome of
true.
horror. Yeah.
It's adjacent. Yeah. It's like it's horror, but you don't get the break of a jump scare. Of like the ending of both our main My First Dungeon 10 Candles and actually our Patreon 10 Candles game.
10 Candles, it's great.
Is there another option in 10 Candles besides tragedy?
It is a tragic
it's really
horror
just baked
role-playing
into
game.
the whole thing.
It's
Yeah.
explicitly tragic, but I feel like there is none of us achieved tragedy in quite the way that either of your characters did.
Especially the second one. Also,
Especially the second
you took a real horror turn in the second one, like with your characters.
I think I'm just getting more comfortable with it and leaning into it.
Oh, you should listen. You should join our
spoilers.
Patreon. It's called the Dice Pool. For $10 a month, you get bonus actual plays every month. Splash. Abby, I'm wondering if like it's maybe agency makes you feel better in horror. Like I feel like for me, because I'm similar to you, where like I really get fucked up by horror movies. But if I have some degree of control or action or agency, it's like all of a sudden it has like a lot less power, even though I'll get more fucked up than a movie character. I think it's just like the movie is like you're on the train and you can't hit the brakes, and
It's
in a
happening
game
to
you
you.
can hit the brakes.
Instead of with you. Yeah. Actually,
I think
no,
there's a
that
safety in
clicks.
that of like
Yeah.
like you could always just be like, I'm gonna get up from this table, and like, yeah, you could turn a movie off. It's just like, I don't know, there's something different there.
You read my mind, which is terrifying and upsetting because
I'm in your walls.
Because it means the two of
established
you
lore.
have a connection.
Because you're in here now. But
I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
exactly. You took it. Even that.
Midnight Muscadines is a cozy, dark tabletop role-playing game where light and shadow intertwine in a fractured world. Players take on the roles of marmoteers, brave adventurers who journey into the untamed wildernite to collect the elusive midnight muscadines, craft magical jams, and protect the fragile light of Nim. Through collaborative storytelling and resourceful gameplay, players weave tales of courage, community, and the pursuit of balance. Will you preserve the light, uncover the truths hidden in the shadows, or reshape the balance of the world forever? Midnight Muscadines is perfect for fans of Studio Ghibli and Sea of Stars who seek to capture the magic of exploration and the heartfelt adventure in a world where small heroes make a big impact. Play Midnight Muscadines as a traditional GM'd game, GMless, or even solo. Midnight Muscadines is crowdfunding now on BackerKit. Join the campaign at pandeongames.com/muscadines.
I'm Quinns of tabletop role-playing game review show Quinn's Quest, and this is Play to Find Out. Play to Find Out is an actual play podcast that brings notorious old games from the 80s and 90s back to the table. Each season of Play to Find Out, I'm joined by Emily Johnson and Rob Morgan.
Good? Nervous?
Yeah.
You both looked at each other really concerned, like you think what's about to happen is going to be unpleasant. And frankly, I think that's rude.
And together, we explore the TTRPGs of ages gone by. Our goal? To separate the TTRPGs that deserve to be remembered from those that maybe don't.
I
don't know, Emily. It was the 80s.
Also,
A lot of people were on cocaine.
We blow the dust from decrepit systems to learn how they work.
Your 100 on the encounter table bursts out. Right, you've encountered a fog. Get ready. Don't laugh.
There's one get ready for a fog.
Don't laugh.
Encounter their unique quirks.
I do finger guns to cover up how I wince.
A weird thing happens as you do finger guns.
Oh no.
And I'm hoping that the Quinn's Quest community will join us in exploring these games too.
If you this up, cannot describe to you how much your adventure ends here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because the best way to learn is to play to find out. Play to Find Out is available now on the Quinn's Quest Patreon, but the first episode of each series streams for free on the Quinn's Quest YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts.
Anyway, you failed the Earth roll, and you made jokes while I was doing my exposition, so you don't get to hear any more.
Oh, no. Come on.
I was shook as...
It feels like you and Chinook are saying like the two sides of the same coin, but truly in that like the agency means that, what was the word you used? Symbiosis, Chinook? I loved that. That like
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. That like you are a participant in the event, and so and then in Abby's words, you have the opportunity to do something about the awful, and the path Chinook usually takes is to make that awful worse, and that is which builds the thing that we all want to see and be a part of, but haven't been able to experience yet, and you're not strapped to a chair hoping that it shakes out the way that the author intends, because you're part of that authorship. And that I'm reminded of, there's this amazing story, and I'm gonna butcher it. It's Joe Hill's work, and I think it's either called like Best Short Horror or like Best in Horror, and the whole it's about a guy who does literary criticism of horror stories, and he's tired of his job, and he's tired of the weirdos that like submit to his lit magazine, and it starts at like some like sad sack horror con where everybody's got just gingivitis and extraneous hair, and the hotels are gross, and so his life, he comes back to just a really disgusting package on his doorstep that turns out to contain a manuscript. And the manuscript is the single most refreshing, most horrifying, most avant-garde, terrifying thing he's ever read. And so he waxes poetic about this, tries to track down the author, because he's like, for the first time in like a decade, I'm excited to publish something again. And so it gets weirder and Lynchian as he tries to find the author. And then the book digress. One of my favorite tools that I don't see, and every time I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to do that in my next game, and never do, is people telling scary stories during a scary story. So someone will stop the action to tell a story that's just ominous. There's no, you know, like you stop the sheriff chasing the bad guy up the mountain to turn to his posse and tell the story about one time this guy he met in a cave, and then it's just deeply unsettling. And then you go right back to it, and it has this foul omen that carries over. So he describes a little bit of this story, which is horrific. It involves like sewing buttons in places of eyes. It's awful. But at the end of the book, 1000% a spoiler alert, he finds the guy's house, and he arrives, and it is full-on Texas Chainsaw. Like, the cell reception drops. It's on a mountain in the middle of Pennsylvania somewhere. His car breaks down, and he goes inside. It reeks of carrion. There's somebody, like, strapped to a bed upstairs, and something clicks, and our hero goes, "Finally." And as he hears the chainsaw rev up downstairs, he sprints into the woods, and the narrator's like, and for the first time in his life, he knew who he was and what he was supposed to do. And he like takes off running down the hill. And it's just like, yes! Because that's what you show up for a spooky game for, is to be that. And you have the safety of not having to die horribly in the end. Just go, man, that was crazy, wasn't it? And
that's meaty.
That is wild. I was going to say, there's definitely, I think, a joy in being able to be a participant in the horror story, even if, like, I feel like a lot of times the natural inclination for someone who's scared of it would be to try to fix it or abate it. And it's like, no, there's actually a lot of fun as well of just leaning into it, of like, yes,
lilting towards it.
Lilting towards horror, if you will. And like building on it and being like, this is all horrifying, gonna have nightmares later, but at least I helped make it.
What pop culture touch points for you? As we're cooking up this Void Stream thing, we really aimed solidly at the like 80s to 90s lo-fi analog horror. To you, what lives just rent-free in your brain anytime you're like, oh, spooky scenario, here's my go-to?
I'm a huge stan and will recommend to everyone the podcast Malevolent from Harlan Guthrie.
Yeah,
I think that is like just the best, some of the best, if not the best, horror storytelling that I've had the chance to consume. In terms of eldritch horror specifically, I think that he gets it so right.
I feel like I never have any good like horror touchstones. I just have like suspense touchstones.
Hit us.
Which I feel like ends up being the same thing. But the one that jumped to my mind is the sci-fi movie Primer. Which is a great movie. It turns out the director's a huge asshole. But the movie is very good. And it accomplishes something of just being like very, very tense the whole way through in a way that is scary, because also like everything kind of happens just off screen in a way that is terrifying and frustrating, but that makes you lean in that little bit closer and try to figure out what's happening. Oh, wait, I do have actually a good... I just realized what it was. I'm a big fan of BBC, like, sci-fi and dramas, and one of the best sci-fi things that the BBC ever came out with was called The Prisoner. Came out in, like, the late 1960s or something.
It's so good.
It's so good, and there's so much weird stuff to it. The ending was like so controversial that like fans were threatening to kill Patrick McGowan, who wrote it. But it's just incredibly weird and unsettling and cerebral. It's like mystery, it's suspense, it's spy thriller, it's horror, it's psychedelic. It just does so much at a time in history where you wouldn't think people were innovating that much, and they absolutely fucking were. Also, the soundtrack is all like
it's like too happy.
It's like
ragtime,
big band, like ragtime, and it makes it all the fucking scarier. So like, it can't be this sunny and bright when bad things are happening.
That's my favorite kind of horror, is like when it's sunny and bright, and then they really fuck you up despite it.
Midsommar.
I think in terms of like found footage horror, I mean, there's like the classiques of like Blair Witch Project, and like fucking Paranormal Activity. But I think a hot take is like What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, calling that horror.
I love that
and,
movie
like,
so
found
much.
footage. It's so good comedically, and like does have like some moments where like you're kind of afraid, like at like the vampire ball and stuff, and like people are straight up dying in that film, but like it's so baked into the comedy that it kind of loses its sting in that way, but like very fucking good comedically.
I absolutely hate the movie The Truman Show because it fucked me up so much. It is my greatest nightmare to imagine that just the whole world around me has, like, I've been living in the Matrix. For some reason, the Matrix didn't fuck me up as much. Maybe because he, like, escapes it and then screws up everything. Yeah.
There's more power. Yeah.
But it makes me think as well about my dad always told me a story of when he was a kid, he read Dracula. And at some point was like sitting in an armchair late at night reading it and got so freaked out that he got up and sat behind the armchair because he was like, then nothing could be behind me because it's just the wall. And I think it's the same thing of it's like
It's how they get you.
that unknown of like, I don't know what to trust around me and like what is happening, and the bizarre loneliness and terror of not knowing what around you is like real and what isn't, and how to deal with that in your own brain is fascinating to me, and also, as I said, my worst nightmare.
I remember rereading Dracula, and it's the whole thing's found footage. It's journals, it's news periodicals. One is a transcript of a wax cylinder tube. It's wild that nobody's made a movie of the book.
The way it's written, yeah.
As found footage.
As a more direct reference, yeah.
Yeah, it's
It'd
always
be
like
amazing.
Keanu going, whoa. Pew, pew, pew. Yeah, but I love Dracula. And yeah, Frankenstein also framed as like found anecdotal evidence. It's like a ship's log and then a diary. It's really exciting. This isn't found footage, so I think, Chinook, so far, one, this has been a game, and you've been winning. Thank you for following the prompts.
I love
well
winning.
done. Yeah, that's how you play.
You have all
baby.
the points.
But It Follows is
I still haven't seen It Follows.
my
Behold,
God.
speaking of Behold, keeps repeatedly for the last
score.
like 5 years keeps telling me to watch it for the score.
a
Like when
great
we were
score.
working on
Disaster
Project
piece.
Echo, he was like, the score for It Follows is like the biggest Behold inspiration. I'm like,
my Hail Mary is by the end of this backer kit campaign, we're actually going to get him and Disaster Piece in a room and just chat about this stuff.
Yes.
And he's one of my favorite composers,
Colin
just
would be
hands
so
down.
thrilled.
Yeah, we were talking
yeah,
about it this
Colin would
morning.
love
Colin was
that.
like, let's get his ass. And I was like, let's do it.
I'm like, how do I help? How do I make this happen? I want this.
But the genius in that show, I love it, is that so it's about a sexually transmitted ghost, which don't think about it. But two, the rules are it can look like anybody, it can't run, and only you can see it. So most of the movie is just wide shots of the characters or claustrophobically close ones. But either way, intentionally, the frames are empty, are desolate, and anytime you see a person, you're just like,
Yeah.
and it could be nothing.
It's happening.
It could be. Like the scariest scene in the movie. Nothing happened. There are lots and lots of scary scenes in the movies. There's this one where they're just in a playground at night because they've been running from the thing, and they're just looking at the trees, and it's awful. And nothing's happening. It's perfectly using the medium. So I get really excited when I see and think, I have a surprise question. That's not a surprise. This is not a surprise. But like using the medium excellently. One thing I wanted to talk about. I guess I'll throw the ball to Brian specifically, and then we can open it up to the group. Sound, music, and its relationship to storytelling in general, but specifically to horror. When is it great to include it? When is it even better to not include it?
The more I've been doing sound design, the more I appreciate silence. In that, like, when you think about music, there's a reason that arrest is noted in music. Like, again, like just with everything we've been talking about, like the difference between silence and cacophony, like that contrast does so much. The difference between putting two contrasting colors together in fashion or in painting, like when you have sound and you're trying to elicit an emotion, it is often about giving that contrast or giving that surprise in the same way that elicits a laugh, in the same way that elicits a scream. It's building up to something, letting your mind anticipate where it's going to go, and then breaking that anticipation. Whether it's like, for some things it might be like you have got 2 notes of a chord and you don't complete the chord in a way that like anyone's brain, like you might not necessarily know what that means musically, but if you hear it, your brain will instinctively be like, that is wrong, fix it. And that's when you're able to resolve that chord. All of a sudden it's thank you, finally. And the same thing can happen in a suspense or a horror scene. Like you hear something in the background, it slowly builds and it builds and it builds. And then you get, Elliot in the GM seat saying like, and then, and I can just choose to take what we already have, which is the GM's speech. I can take the players' reactions to it and just use sound to heighten those things of you. Because when you're playing a game, you have those emotions and those feelings and like that internal soundtrack that just doesn't exist when you're listening to it back in the recording. So all I'm trying to do is put into a recording and onto the page of like the music, the thing that was already there for the players. And a lot of that is that rising suspense and suspense and suspense. And then Elliot says the thing and bang. And it's all in those moments of silence and that contrast that mean absolutely everything.
Do we buy that?
Nah.
I will say, especially.
I just wanted more time on the mic, guys. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, especially with Wild Sea, Elliot is particularly good at delivering lines in a very suspenseful and like pausing in just the right places, and sometimes particularly being like quiet with it, but in a way where you're like, but why? Yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean? So you are particularly adept as well in your delivery of various things, playing with silence in that same way.
And these are all like things that can be noted musically, like the difference between a note and a rest, the difference between a crescendo and a decrescendo, like changing the volume. Also, like having an accidental note in music is like the one thing that sounds a little out of place, but because it's not there, or because it is there and it sounds a little out of place, you notice it more. Like it's all the same thing, man. Hey, guys,
it's all the same thing, man.
All right?
Everything's the same, man.
Everything
We're all
is
one.
music, all right? Everything exists in the universal language of music, okay?
Brian, this is Brian's new favorite thing with the glasses.
Fine vintage.
You've fully switched characters at this point.
That's your talk of the table face, I imagine, just as NPR.
It is. He's doing it the whole time, and our guests hate it, but he won't stop.
He doesn't even
But
need
it's
glasses.
really good stuff. They find it just threatening enough that they give us good answers.
It's also what you're talking about, Brian, is not to spoil. It's kind of the theme of the season of Wild Sea for those who are following along.
No spoilers.
Between
No
howl and
spoilers.
void, cacophony and silence.
Can you guys hear like a tuba in the background of mine?
I was really trying to like get situated into that silence, like a soapy, ominous bath. But then in the background, there's like,
There's some asshole that plays the tuba like every evening in my fucking apartment.
Oh, that's so good.
No, they're so bad. And like the
If that tuba hadn't
neighbors will,
happened,
like,
we
be
might have
like,
done
Who
that
the fuck
for-
is doing that?
They're learning.
well, it's impressive because a tuba's a hard thing to hide, right? Like it's not. Oh, quick, hurry! I gotta just.
It's also not an instrument that I imagine a lot of people in adulthood are like, I want to learn an instrument. You know what I'm going to start with?
Yeah, you kind of need a band for a tuba.
That's what you think. Not this guy. Not this guy.
Been by himself.
Just lots of tuba and lots of loud sex. That's all we hear coming from this apartment.
At the same time, sometimes.
That's New York, baby.
Chinook, any thoughts to add to the sounds of silence?
I was gonna say hello, darknest my old friend. Very good. I mean, I think what Brian also masterfully does in like designing like our show is not only like using silence, but also like using like table talk as like a element of sound design. Of like there'll be like such a big tension building moment, and then he'll cut it with like Jay saying something, oh, actually I forgot this thing, and I'll like give you humor in like a place that wasn't really a joke, but like in the way he designs it, like hits hard because like of all the elements of sound he just used to build up tension. And I think it's a really fun thing to just see in post, and like having like being part of the production, be like, oh shit, like Brian made this even better with the editing.
Oh,
but
Brian,
like, using table talk as a sound is
you did it.
That's a great point.
Hey, listen, a voice is just another instrument, am I right? In my symphony, okay?
A voice is basically another tuba.
It's just another tuba.
I think though, like to lean into the medium as well, and this is Shenuk, you made me think of this because I think this is something you did a lot in 10 Candles, especially is you change your voice volume really effectively and your mic positioning, and that's like very useful of the medium for like for guiding the listener's emotion. I think Brian put it this way once, where like you get quiet and we all have to lean in, even though we don't, but we do. And like I remember your voicemail in 10 Candles, you were like down here, just like talking very slowly, and it's great. And to shout out another way that like the medium can be used for horror is like how you play the instrument of the microphone.
How you play the instrument of the tuba, if you will.
Yeah.
This turned out to be so, I think, practically productive for running spooky games. I didn't know what to expect. Not that I didn't think you would like have great things to say on this subject, but you know, I mean, horror is such a broad thing that you can kind of dance around stuff for a long time. And I think we walked away from a lot of this discussion with really key insights. We're making a thing. We've made Void Stream. I showed you the video. Real talk. I don't know. What do you think? Is it cool? Would use?
I think the more I play games, the more I play tabletop stuff, the more I like leaning into like random tables, or like bits of things that are ephemera that can be used to like inspire things, and that's what I'm interested in about this project, in that it is like take something, use the inspiration from it, and like allow that vibe to like infuse your table in a way that like it, kind of in the same way that we use sound design, of like we're trying to heighten for the listener what was at the table. And it's the same way for like your home table. If you're using something, it's like you're trying to heighten the experience at the table to something that you maybe can't achieve on your own. Like having a tool like that, I think is incredibly fun, and like just opens you up to a lot of creative opportunities.
I think that like one of the things that you're doing is, and I know like Mothership is obviously this thing that you've grown really in depth with, and like you've obviously had a lot of time with to explore. And I think what you said about the way that Mothership gives these tools to invoke some of these horror techniques of performance, you're creating the audiovisual equivalent of those tools in a lot of ways, like because of how much experience you've had playing with the text version of them. It's like, how can we make this like a diegetic sort of audiovisual thing? And so I think it's like a really, really great resource for people, because then you're giving them that, you're not spoon feeding them the imagined horror, but you're giving them, again, like that seed I was talking about earlier, but you're just giving like you're giving like a really fucking good, like a meaty seed to put in their brain. Like nice, I think that's what you're doing by adding audiovisual, is you're making like these really, really juicy horror seeds.
It is also in the same way that we were talking, like using all five senses. It's like, hey, let me use this tool to help invoke some of those that can do it in a way that's more effective than I can just do with my, human voice.
Elliot, what you were just saying reminded me so strongly. Y'all remember Signs, the Shyamalan
Yeah.
The best part of that, it has a lot of really memorable moments, but to me, it's when they're all in the closet with the tinfoil hats on watching the news recording, and at one point Joaquin Phoenix is like, "Vamonos, children," because it's going on in Peru, but they're in a cornfield or something, and it's just shaky found footage, and it goes on for like 10 minutes where nothing happens. You're just like, what is this, some sort of quinceañera? What's happening? And then for half a second, you just see like an arm stick out from behind like a fence or something. And that's it. Like you don't get to see the monster. It's just like the slightest confirmation of belief. And you go, "Oh!" And that stays with you in a way that, again, if we were in the business of trying to make like big monstery spacey ghosts, I don't think it would be satisfying. It's the implication that something's gone terribly awry, and then leaving it at that, because then you start doing the work from there as players, right?
No, I think that's what excites me most about this project is like you get to not just like play like with like what you commonly get to play with in these types of shows, but you also get to play with the piece of not knowing and like the audience giving you that grace of like, it's okay if I don't know. You get to like take out portions of story and be like, you're not going to know what this is until like I tell you it's okay. And I think that's such a incredible like tool to have for storytelling, and I'm so excited to see what you do with it. But just in this medium, I'm like, this is such a cool piece of storytelling application to just play with for this medium. So I'm very excited to see.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you happen to be visiting New York City and enjoy either being horrified at how little you're laughing or afraid of how much you're enjoying yourself, check out the stand-up comedy scene, because you're probably going to see Chinook doing his thing up there on the stage, risking it all for guts and glory and mostly just belly laughs. Is that the best way to...
Yeah, that works. That's what I do. That's what I do to you.
Check out the thrilling new Kickstarter campaign that's from Many-Sided Media, a Regency-era improv comedy extravaganza, beautifully dubbed Bitcherton, a podcast and love letter to Austinian nonsense aplenty that's chock full of Dropout.tv comedians and alums, special guests, and also Brian.
Yeah.
It's really how we're doing it.
Do please investigate back them and then us, and enjoy the beautifully crafted video that accompanies their podcast campaign announcement.
Who made that?
Who did it? Were they bald?
Who could have done that?
Where are they bald? They sound bald. They sound bald.
Their work just sort of evokes a sense of baldness that I can't put my finger on.
Yeah, and by the time this reaches the airwaves, I think it'll be still time to catch the latest season of My First Dungeon, where the very people in this conversation are sailing the leafy shoals of the Wild Sea, an arboreal adventure of nautical warfare, practical pranks, and unexpectedly beautiful tree shanties. Anyway, I'm loving it. It's bananas, equal parts spooky and seafaring. I don't know. Check it out. Any last thoughts?
Romcom Drama Bomb comes out July 15th.
Right.
Woo!
And after you're done backing Bitcherton on Kickstarter, after you're done catching up on all the seasons of My First Dungeon and the Wild Sea, after you've listened to every episode of Talk of the Table, maybe you should head over to the Panic Table, listen to the first season of Unaccompanied Minors.
Maybe.
That's a pretty fun thing to do.
If you've got the time.
I would do it.
Again, you got to do all the other stuff. We've got.
You have to have a lot of
Once you get
time on
through
your
that-
hands for that to
If
be worth
you've got a spare 20 minutes, it's a great way to pass the time.
If you haven't completely run out of money by the time you've backed Bitcherton, Void Stream, and then just donated to our various shows, you should absolutely endorse the skills of one Elliot Davis as he cranks out what is a surefire 3-person party hit in his tabletop RPG rom-com drama.
If you only got 2 friends, it's going to be a great time.
Well, I am curious, and this could be off mic or not, but like, in order to make a show, in order to make a game like this, wouldn't you have to have the experience of knowing like what having friends is like, Elliot?
Yeah, you would. Which is why I'm proud to announce the team of consultants I had to hire to pretend to be my friends during the production of this, including many people on this call: Shenuk Tessera, Abby Hepworth, Brian Flaherty, all getting paid at a premium.
Very good rate.
Ooh, there's a good alternate villain for Romcom in there somewhere of like the hired
The hired friend.
Bridesmaid for hire.
Yeah, bridesmaid for hire. There's something around there. I don't know what it is.
It's like the Uno reverse of villains. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'll go ahead and hit. The second I press stop on this, we're going to say something incredible, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Midnight Muscadines is a cozy, dark tabletop role-playing game where light and shadow intertwine in a fractured world. Players take on the roles of Marmoteers, brave adventurers who journey into the untamed Wildernite to collect the elusive Midnight Muscadines, craft magical jams, and protect the fragile light of Nim. Through collaborative storytelling and resourceful gameplay, players weave tales of courage, community, and the pursuit of balance. Will you preserve the light, uncover the truths hidden in the shadows, or reshape the balance of the world forever? Midnight Muscadines is perfect for fans of Studio Ghibli and Sea of Stars who seek to capture the magic of exploration and the heartfelt adventure in a world where small heroes make a big impact. Play Midnight Muscadines as a traditional GM'd game, GM-less, or even solo. Midnight Muscadines is crowdfunding now on BackerKit. Join the campaign at pandiongames.com/muscadines.
I'm Quinns of tabletop role-playing game review show Quinn's Quest, and this is Play to Find Out. Play to Find Out is an actual play podcast that brings notorious old games from the 80s and 90s back to the table. Each season of Play to Find Out, I'm joined by Emily Johnson and Rob Morgan.
Good? Nervous?
Yeah.
You both looked at each other really concerned, like you think what's about to happen is going to be unpleasant. And frankly, I think that's rude.
And together, we explore the TTRPGs of ages gone by. Our goal? To separate the TTRPGs that deserve to be remembered from those that maybe don't. I don't know, Emily. It was the 80s. A lot of people were on cocaine. We blow the dust from decrepit systems to learn how they work. Your 100 on the encounter table bursts out. Right, you've encountered a fog. Get ready. Don't laugh.
Does one get ready for a fog?
Don't laugh. Encounter their unique quirks.
I do finger guns to cover up how I wince.
A weird thing happens as you do finger guns.
Oh no.
And I'm hoping that the Quinn's Quest community will join us in exploring these games too. If you this up, cannot describe to you how much your adventure ends here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because the best way to learn is to play to find out. Play to Find Out is available now on the Quinn's Quest Patreon, but the first episode of each series streams for free on the Quinn's Quest YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Anyway, you failed the Earth Tech roll, and you made jokes while I was doing my exposition, so you don't get to hear any more.
Oh, no. Come on.
I was shook.